Good morning to each and everyone. Welcome to the Retail Innovation Asia 2022 virtual conference. We highly appreciate everyone's attendance today, and we hope you have a great learning experience. Before we start with the first track of the first day of our two-day event, we would like to officially thank all of our sponsors for making this event possible. Our diamond sponsors, LAIYE, Neo4j, MoEngage, SAS, and Digital Alchemy. Our messaging partner, Gupshup. Our gold sponsors, Comark, Adobe, Aptos, F5, and Freshworks. Our presentation sponsors, iClick Interactive, Fivetran, Zoho Corporation, and IT Group. Our knowledge sponsors, Miracle, AsiaPay, Palexi, and Vizuri. And last but not least, our exhibitor sponsors, Appier, Gorgeous, Snowflake, Sendbird, and Digimind. Thank you. So reminding everyone that you may post your questions under the Q&A tab on your right-hand side, and our speakers and panelists will try their best to answer in their given time within the session. Also, be on the lookout for polls on the right-hand side, and you may also see links posted in the chat for free downloadable content. We highly appreciate everyone's participation. Lastly, aside from the main agenda, you can also visit our sponsors' booth over at the booth section during our breaks. Some of these booths will have prizes in store to those that visit and engage in their booths. So hope everyone will have a fun and learning experience. So to officially kick off our event, we now open the new Consumer Insights track, and our first presenter will be Brian Briggs, Vice President of Customer Solutions and Operations at LAIYE, on the retail modernization with the rise of intelligent automation. Over to you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Jed. Hopefully everybody can hear me okay.
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, excellent. So yes, as Jed mentioned, my name is Brian Briggs, and I lead customer solutions and operations for LAIYE Technology. Today, I'm speaking to you from Brisbane, Australia. And for those of you who maybe haven't heard of LAIYE Technology, LAIYE is a global intelligent automation company that helps retailers like you to reduce cost and increase growth. And for those of you maybe with HD monitors, you might be seeing a shadow and wondering whether or not I'm speaking today with a black eye. And unfortunately, you would be right. Lesson learned. Don't schedule an ophthalmologist appointment within 48 hours of giving a keynote. But anyways, we prevail. And you're not here to talk about my black eye. You're here to talk about modernizing retail, and specifically how we can do that with intelligent automation. There's a well-respected analyst from Gartner who says that intelligent automation has shifted from an option to a condition of survival. These are strong words, and it applies to many industries, but I think retail most specifically. And before we get too deep into intelligent automation, I wanted to take a quick poll to better understand where your companies are in their exploration of intelligent automation. So as Jed mentioned, there is kind of a polling section on the right-hand side of your screen. It looks like if you click feed and then polls, you can switch over to it. And the first question is, regarding intelligent automation, my company is A, deploying it at scale, B, just getting started with a couple of deployments, C, currently exploring how it can help our business, or D, not even thinking about it. So I'll give a few seconds to see the results come in. Okay, has everybody been able to find it and make a vote? All right, Jed, can we look at the responses?
Yes, Brian, I'm showing the responses on stage right now.
Oh, okay, sorry, I'm not, there we go. Okay, so just getting started with a couple of deployments and then currently exploring how it can help our business. So I think that seems about right. Especially what we're seeing kind of around the organization is many organizations have kind of heard about intelligent automation and are starting to think, okay, how can we start to harness this powerful technology, and where do we go next? And I mentioned that I think retail is one of the key areas or key industries that can really most benefit from intelligent automation. And what we know about retail is that it's been constantly evolving over the past couple decades, right? It started with local, then there were the mail order catalogs, malls, of course, online, mobile, and then COVID, which has kind of drastically changed things. And what we've seen is that change is really the only constant, and that COVID has greatly intensified the pressure on all retailers. McKinsey says that COVID has accelerated digital adoption by 10 years. So if you would have taken the same poll prior to COVID occurring, I think there would have been many people, many companies who were not even thinking about digital transformation, intelligent automation. What we're also seeing is that companies are starting to think more about intelligent automation because consumers are also changing their behaviors drastically. Many of them are moving to digital-only brands and are potentially abandoning some of the legacy relationships which they had before. And that's why retail businesses are changing, right? They're adopting automation. And ultimately trying to better serve their customers as much as possible. So when we think about what this impact is, what we started to see is that many organizations have adopted very impressive storefronts, very impressive digital interfaces. Whether that might be online or mobile, kind of making it easier for customers to purchase things, to return things. But oftentimes, even though you have that kind of slick facade, on the back end, it's kind of riddled with different pain points across the operations team. And these are the pain points that we hear from our customers. I mean, probably none of them coming as a major surprise. But first and foremost, productivity is lower than it should be. There's a significant amount of time that's spent manually reconciling inventory management databases, connecting different systems. You have staff that have inflexible working hours, and it's not always aligning well with the high periods within your business at holidays or promotion times. And you have a variety of different communication channels where information is coming in, which makes it even more difficult on the operations team. And this kind of omni-channel environment leads to lower quality of work. And the work isn't as good as it should be. We see inaccurate order fulfillment, unavoidable mistakes that are made by people. People make mistakes. We know this, and that throughout this, there's a chance or a risk of not meeting kind of regulatory or compliance standards. And I started talking about customers earlier and how we can better serve them, but the reality is that the customer experiences and the demands of the customer are greater today than they ever have been in the past. Right? Customers are expecting immediate fulfillment. They want the response time to not be weeks, but to be hours or even in real time. And in order to meet these expectations, it's a continuing drain on your teams, which requires overtime, which costs more, and these costs start to eat away at the underlying profit margins, right? And these costs aren't necessarily all personnel related. We also see these costs, kind of with rising inflation, coming across the whole supply chain. Ultimately, the bottom line is that, as you all probably know, retail is complex. It's often inefficient and very competitive. And there are, an overwhelming mix of suppliers and distributors, finance systems, HR systems, management systems, data systems that all basically need to come together in a seamless way to make things run properly. And it's not always as easy as it sounds. So, with kind of having set the scene, I thought it would make sense to potentially take a second poll and better understand, some of the challenges that your organization is suffering from. Option A, productivity issues fueled by large amounts of manual reconciliation. B, inaccurate order fulfillment and/or human errors. C, rising customer expectations around the overall service experience. D, rising costs of goods and/or staff. Or E, all of the above. Okay, I'm seeing some votes coming in. So far, all of the above looks to be the clear winner. For those of you saying all of the above, we do have a booth that you can come and visit after this. We should definitely talk because I think these challenges are normal, but also these are challenges that there are solutions to. Okay, I've seen almost 30 votes come in and still overwhelmingly all of the above. Okay, fantastic. Thanks everybody for participating. Okay, so moving on. Forrester tells us that companies that adapt now will be in the best position to take market share in the coming years. We saw Gartner say it earlier, and the sentiment is the same, right? Intelligent automation is a condition of survival, and it's going to put organizations in the best place to outlast or obliterate, in this case, the competition. And I get it. Moving into this new age of automation may seem foreign or like uncharted territory, but the potential benefits drastically outweigh the downsides, and they will free up your teams to do more higher value work and kind of create a much better experience for your internal and external stakeholders. And ultimately, how we get there is through a combination of technologies that kind of makes up this kind of intelligent automation umbrella. And this is, a retail world or operation that we envision where manufacturers, suppliers, distributors, store locations, and customers can work together seamlessly and symbiotically. Kind of data coming from one place immediately gets captured and grabbed, applied to other information within the supply chain, and so that you can better make decisions and provide a kind of an optimized experience to your internal and external stakeholders. And this is really done typically through a unified AI-powered integrated automation platform. It starts with automation, which is really the foundation for connecting systems and enhancing productivity. But it also requires some higher value or higher order of activity capabilities, such as artificial intelligence. And in this case, I'm not talking about robots walking around your store locations. I'm talking about basically trained decision-making capability that can be happening within your software systems, so that it can understand how people are operating and then make decisions based on those inputs that are coming or questions that are being asked. And then lastly, every business needs strong analytics to help to generate those operational insights and to then make strategic decisions. So if you have the operational analytics, you can start to manage your operation in a much more effective way. And when all the work is being completed within an integrated automation platform, you have that ability to kind of get to that optimized, kind of streamlined, more productive experience for your stakeholders. And so we talk about automation, AI, and analytics, but those three things really manifest themselves, typically in existing products that you might have seen in the market before, potentially that you've even tried before, like RPA or robotic process automation. As I mentioned, this is kind of the foundation. It's going to help automate mundane tasks. It's going to connect legacy systems or just disparate systems, some from suppliers or distributors, and connect the data to them in a more seamless fashion, so that there's no more kind of swivel chair automation where people are typing from one screen to the next. And the beauty of RPA is that it's low code. There's no dev skills required in most cases in order to develop RPA. That's for the easy stuff. Of course, the more complex activities that you try to do, the more that you need an individual or a team who's kind of experienced in deploying the software. IDP, sorry to throw another acronym at you, but it stands for Intelligent Document Processing. And intelligent document processing is really critical because it deals with unstructured data. And so unstructured data should really be thought of as anything that's coming from outside of a database. So data that's coming from a database, nice and structured, we know exactly what to expect when we call that database. But unstructured data is the type of thing that's coming in PDFs or JPGs or PNGs, right? So if somebody takes a picture of their receipt and wants to send it into you to get to make a return, that would be considered unstructured data. It's important when you have unstructured data to be able to analyze that information and extract the key data points, or maybe classify this is a receipt, this is a goods received notice, this is an invoice, and then be able to extract the core data points. And then, ultimately with some of the other functionality, you can do some reconciliation across those data points and kind of solve end-to-end processes. One of the important things to look for when selecting kind of IDP technology is out-of-the-box models. So in many cases, you'll find that there are pre-trained capabilities to extract data directly from invoices or purchase orders or goods received notices, which will drastically reduce your implementation time. And then on top of that, if you don't have the out-of-the-box model, you can have basically what's called a self-learning model, which will enable the software to learn on your specific data set and to extract the exact data points that you're looking for. And then lastly, what you see on the screen is the chatbot. The chatbot is a crucial component, especially when it comes to customer service, because it enables real-time communication, real-time answers. Chatbots should be able to integrate into your existing apps. So if you have an app that customers are able to send messages through, you should be able to have a chatbot that is integrating directly through that, or also through WhatsApp or WeChat or Skype, other channels that you might be using. And the beauty of a chatbot is the ability to kind of manage custom conversations and in some cases actually make those decisions in real time. So individually you can deploy these products, but the real power comes from bringing these items together into an intelligent automation platform. An intelligent automation platform takes those components and ties them together, orchestrates them together in end-to-end processes, and typically does that through some form of kind of automation commander or orchestrator that will enable data to come in via REST API or from those RPA capabilities that I mentioned before, and then connect it to your different systems, grab some of that unstructured data, parse that data, collect some of the information, and then ultimately push it out. And if you're leveraging a chatbot, you have the chatbot, which is kind of helping to manage the conversation. And so when the chatbot, maybe somebody uploads their information directly into the chatbot, it goes to the IDP function and then gets orchestrated into the end system. Transactions get carried out and then ultimately pushed back to the customer. And it's important that that there is a safety valve in case the chatbot is unable to answer all of the questions. And that's where something like the hub comes into play. So the hub is really going to be your kind of interface layer for when there are scenarios that are unknown by the bot. So the bot will say, oh, I don't have confidence in answering this question, and can then seamlessly push it to a person to address the questions. And so what you have there is you have a situation where many questions are common or routine, the bot is able to answer on its own. But then that 20, 30, 40% of questions which are more unique get escalated to your customer service staff, so to kind of still maintain a quality experience for the end customer. And naturally, in order to reduce deployment times, managing all of this with a low code designer, so that it can be put in place and maintained by either operations teams or kind of a combination of operations and technology teams, is really critical to making this kind of technology that will be lasting for the long term within your organization. So this is a pretty meaty slide. So I think it's probably time to kind of just take another pulse check and see how is everybody doing. So I haven't been quite talking for 20 minutes, maybe about 15 minutes. But after I've been talking for about 15 minutes, I'm curious to understand whether you see tons of potential for intelligent automation within your organization. B, can imagine a few areas where intelligent automation can help. Whether you're looking to see a few actual customer use cases. D, you want to actually see the software, or E, still don't get it. Okay, a bit more even keel on this one. It looks like we've got over 30 votes, and there's a desire to see some customer use cases. Okay, excellent, we can do that. Some of you want to see the software in action. Okay, no problem. And one person still doesn't get it. Don't worry, hopefully there's still 5 or 10 more minutes. Hopefully by the end here, you'll kind of see it come to life and it'll make a bit more sense to you. Thanks everybody for voting, and I promise this is the last poll. So thank you, and let's keep going. So at a high level, all of the common retail use cases. So for those of you who said that you saw a bunch of use cases that could possibly apply in your organization, they're probably on this sheet. Things like order management, inventory management, fraud detection, shipment tracking, supplier management. We do a lot of work within the accounts payable space. So there's a ton of opportunities, and if you kind of go from the inside out, are those areas that are most ripe for intelligent automation, and then those use cases that are at the margins are still definitely applicable, but it will depend on kind of the maturity of your operation today and kind of what exactly you're looking to achieve. Hopefully this is kind of a good base, but let's talk about some real kind of customer examples and go from there. So this first example is an example that is primarily focused on RPA, and the way it started is that my idea was really struggling to maintain control over multi-channel pricing across multiple e-commerce platforms. So their goods were being sold in a number of different places, and they wanted to ensure that that there was price compliance across all of these platforms. And then to ensure this, they were spending really a lot of wasted time going to these different e-commerce platforms and checking. And they instituted a process with RPA robots to basically go to these e-commerce sites, extract the data or crawl those sites, grab the data, and then just basically check what was the price on that site at any given time. They could check multiple times a day if they wanted. And then based on those checks, they were able to see that they had the level of compliance that they had. So these checks led to 100% accuracy and a significant amount of peace of mind for their organization when it came to managing some of their e-commerce supply pricing. So the second example is going to be a little bit more focused on the IDP case. In this case, we're looking at kind of one of the more of the distributors in the overall supply chain pipeline as opposed to a direct retailer. But what they had is they had an issue where there were a number of different delivery suppliers, different documentation formats, very high volume, very repetitive, very manual. Ultimately, imagine that kind of IDP use case I mentioned before. You have invoices, you have goods received notices, and you have purchase orders. You need to extract the data from those and then reconcile the information across those documents to ensure that the order has been completed accurately. And so that's exactly what JDL did. They ultimately deployed a kind of IDP solution with the orchestration method, and were able to reduce the amount of manual work in processing these by 60%. And this also resulted in a much faster processing time. So no longer were documents kind of piling up. They were addressed kind of as soon as they would arrive, and it made a big impact on their business. And I saw some of the comments about chatbots, people loving chatbots. I think chatbots, today have been a love-hate relationship because, depending on how a chatbot is deployed, it can really change the engagement experience. And what we're seeing is that a lot of companies started to deploy chatbots 2-3 years ago, and they were deploying maybe dumb chatbots. But today, as the technology has improved and as the quality and the ability to do so much more with chatbots has evolved, you're getting much more enhanced kind of customer experiences. And this is exactly what Walmart, kind of sought to achieve. They had, a major problem where what they were seeing is that during holidays and promotion periods, that they were getting potentially up to 10-fold increases in customer inquiries. And this basically meant that their customer support staff could not handle the requests. And there's nothing more frustrating when you try to get information during a promotion and you can't get a hold of anybody at that organization. And so Walmart decided to deploy conversational AI or chatbot across all of its channels to field these kind of up to 500,000 daily inquiries. So it's Walmart is a very high volume business. And what they've seen is that now when there are spikes, they no longer need to kind of plan ahead to hire a bunch of contractors or to make people work overtime. They're able to manage all of those spikes with the existing staff, and a large volume of those inquiries, 80%, can essentially be handled without human intervention because many of the questions are common, and the way that the kind of chatbots work is that they start to build up a knowledge base over time. So as new questions come in, those questions just get fed back into the knowledge base. And the bots are able to do more and more as time goes by. And the last example I'm going to share is with Nike, a company we certainly all probably are familiar with. Nike's challenge was really kind of one of these classic back office challenges where they had a number of resellers, and these resellers had to send orders through a prepaid system, which was essentially very tedious. It required a lot of manual processing and manual data entry to update, order status or payment balances. And, this was, of course, just, a problem all the time, but it was really exacerbated during holidays and promotional periods, which would create major backlogs. And so the solution that was put in place was to use RPA bots to help kind of process orders more effectively, to reduce some of that manual input, but then most importantly, to leverage conversational AI or chatbots to communicate with customers via WeChat and Nike's app. And ultimately what they achieved is they also achieved about an 80% balance of their requests being handled by the chatbot, with then the remaining 20% being kind of seamlessly transferred to the customer success or customer service people, which resulted in about a 250% improvement in that team's efficiency. And for those of you who wanted to see it in action, let's take a look. Okay, pretty cool, right? So hopefully it wasn't too fast, and everybody was able to kind of follow along with what was ultimately being shown. And I think there are really a tremendous number of applications when it comes to intelligent automation. But what we're seeing is that the combination of conversational AI and RPA and IDP really creates this kind of integrated automation platform that will reduce a lot of the pain points that retailers are facing today, and enable them to really position themselves for the future, and to be much more competitive, to increase potential revenues by selling more through kind of customer assistance, like you saw in that Nike video, but by also drastically reducing costs because of a better balance of work kind of going to the customer service agents or the operations teams. So with that, that's my presentation. Thanks for watching, and thanks for listening. Thanks for your participation in the polls. Please definitely connect with us through social media or me directly, and stop by our booth if you have more questions. I have time to take maybe one or two questions if there are any, and we can go from there.
I see that we have one question over at the feed, Brian. It's from Yin Chen Lee. What is RPA?
Okay. RPA is a software technology that stands for robotic process automation. And what robotic process automation really became famous for is probably two things. The first one is integrating between applications directly through the front end of the screen or the website, just like a user would. So instead of kind of connecting to the back end directly to the database, it kind of, you have a robot that would log into the system with the username and password, just like all of us would. And in that sense, IT organizations like it because it's just like adding additional users within the organization. The other thing that RPA became famous for is that it was easy to develop these types of solutions. So it was low code or no code, really using kind of drag and drop type designers to put these automations in place. And you should think about these automations as kind of strictly rules-based automations when it comes to traditional RPA, which is why then you need some of these augmented capabilities like IDP and conversational AI to ultimately manage end-to-end automation.
All right. Thank you so much, Brian. Yin Chen has a follow-up question, but I think this would be best discussed in your booth. So Yin Chen, after Brian's presentation, you can catch him over at the LAIYE booth, and he'd be happy to assist any of your follow-up questions. Right.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Brian. All
Thank
right.
you.
So yeah, up next we have a panel discussion on Asia Pacific's glimpse into retail in 2022 and beyond. So joining us in this panel session are Brandon Richards, General Manager for Asia, Neo4j. We have Saurabh Madan, General Manager, Southeast Asia, Australia and New Zealand for MoEngage. We have Mark Chim, Managing Director, Primer International Management. We have Chris Neff, Managing Director, Asia Pacific, KORLOFF Paris. We have Yuna Davina, General Manager, Enterprise Data Analytics at PT Lion Super Indo. And our moderator, Mr. Pathak Siddharth, Partner and Head of Consumer Products, Asia Pacific at Kearney. So over to you, Pathak.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody. Thank you for joining us for this session. My name is Siddharth Pathak. I'm a partner with Kearney, and I co-lead our consumer and retail practice for the Asia Pacific market. Before I introduce our panelist, I just wanted to set the context for this session. APAC glimpses into retail in 2022 and the years beyond. The retail industry in Asia Pac, for many of you who follow it quite closely, has been in a state of rapid evolution since the start of this century. In the early 2000s, we were all discussing modern trade and how modern trade through international retailers was entering Asia. We saw conglomerates diversifying and getting into retail businesses in almost all markets in Asia. And then many years ago, the e commerce boom started largely from China that has now led the wave. Over the last 2 years of COVID, uh, this disruption has accelerated. Words like direct to consumer, machine learning, RPA are now household names now. Today, we want to hear from our panelists. What does this mean for the future of retail in our markets in Asia, and now, in the immediate future, and then in a few years to come? With that, I'll request my panelists to maybe just give us a brief introduction of themselves and how they're associated with the retail industry in Asia Pac. May I request Brandon to go first, please?
Yeah, Brandon Richards. I'm the general manager for Neo4j in Asia. And Neo4j is a connected data platform company. So what we do is we help organizations understand their connected data, get value out of connected data, do analytics on connected data. But retailers across the globe are struggling with these connected data problems. And so what we're finding is being able to connect data is a huge aspect of a lot of the things that you want to be able to do, dealing with siloed data, dealing with things like recommendation engines and supply chains, all very connected data problems. So that's where we fit into the space, and we're happy to be here.
Thanks, Brandon. Pleasure to have you. May I request Yuna to go next, please?
Yes, thank you, Sid. I'm Yuna. I'm from PT LAIYE Superindo. We are the holding company of the supermarket Superindo, the brand is, in Indonesia. Currently, we have more than 200 stores spread in Java and Sumatra. By the time we're in the middle of the pandemic, we are selling FMCGs, right? Mostly the basic needs categories. We also realized that shoppers and the data could be a very valuable treasures for us. All the data that we got from their visit, from the basket, is something that really needs to be analyzed in order for us to get more of the business insight itself from the customer's point of view. So currently we are working towards the data integration itself within the company, and we have launched our digital loyalty apps over the past 2 years, and we are moving towards the data-driven business decision making. Thank you.
Thanks, Yuna. May I request Chris, please?
Yes, hello, good morning. I'm Chris Neff, the Managing Director for KORLOFF Paris for Asia Pacific. I'm looking for the brand's development, strategic as well as operational across the whole region. KORLOFF Paris is a luxury brand headquartered in Paris with a strong growth across all markets. So my main focus is to enter new markets, to enter new channels, to find new innovative ways to partner with our retailers, distributors, or franchisee across the regions. Looking at the omni-channel model, how to further grow in the various platforms, and in particular also bringing the e-commerce and digital models also much closer to the luxury consumers. With that, we look into ways how to engage with new consumer segments that are fast evolving in many of the markets and engage them very proactively and grow the brand equity. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Chris. Mark?
Good morning, everyone. Mark Chim here from Primer International. Primer International is a subsidiary or holding company of the Primer Group, and Primer Group predominantly operates out of the Philippines as our headquarters. So I'm in Manila now. I'm usually based in Singapore. We operate about 450 stores in the region. So we operate in 7 countries in Asia. And our main focus is on consumer goods. So we are, distributors and retailers of your very important consumer goods like North Face, Colombia, just to name a few. And we've been in this business for 35 years. It's been a journey for us because we are more of a brick and mortar company. Before the pandemic, online sales was a very small percentage of our business. But subsequently from there, we have, built up new capabilities. We have moved people into different subsets of our organizations and reorg, and online has become a strong foothold for us in the region. And we look forward to sharing our successes and our weaknesses to your audience. Thank you for inviting us.
Thanks, Mark. Saurabh?
Thank you, Sid. Much appreciated. Guys, Saurabh here. I'm the GM and Vice President for a company called MoEngage. I'm joining in from Singapore this morning. We are a software company. All of the digital first companies typically need a customer engagement strategy, and we power their customer engagement through a platform. So we have a SaaS platform that connects with any app or any B2C website that will enable our customers to personalize their engagement via multiple channels, such as personalizing the website, push notifications, emails, etc. with the consumer. We've always been in the digital first economy. I think until 2 years ago, most of our customers were like the likes of Credivo for Indonesia, Atomy here in Southeast Asia. They're a big brand now. But what we've started seeing in the last 2 years is a lot of traditional brick and mortar companies really want to go digital. So a lot of projects that are coming to us now are companies with brick and mortar businesses trying to go digital. So you're sitting in Philippines, Mark. All Value is one of them, who've always been a traditional retailer. MAP in Indonesia have always been a traditional retailer. So our journey from our own company's journey is that we were working with digital first companies only back in the day, but now a lot of traditional companies, including banks, telcos, have started coming to us, helping them transform their business. We run an Asia-wide business. We have a team in Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, Philippines. We are hiring in Australia, New Zealand right now, South Korea, and Japan as well. So that's me. Back to you, Sid.
Thanks, Saurabh. Audience, as you saw, we have a pretty diverse panel. People who run businesses, people who support businesses through technology. We have retailers, brand owners, as well as people looking at distribution. So with that, let's get started. And I want to pick what Saurabh alluded to, and maybe Yuna, if you could take this first. For the longest time, we have heard that retailers want to do digital transformation. Everybody sees the value of digital transformation. That's been around for at least a decade, if not more. And yet, till the time COVID hit us, we did not see a lot of progress being made by all retailers. There were some examples, but most of them were still operating in the brick and mortar business. COVID has accelerated some of this by default, where people have reacted to. What is it that is holding back the traditional brick and mortar retailers in this part of the world to actually trying to be digital first, as against trying to build some sort of a digital business? Would love to get your reactions, Yuna, to that.
Okay. Well, digital world, it's not only about bringing data into our everyday life, right? It's also about changing the business perspective. It's sometimes adjusting the growth drivers and your building block to it. It requires capabilities and cultures on top of the right infrastructures. Now, I have to say that for a more conservative business, retailer included, sometimes we struggle to build this organically at a sufficient level and speed. Because, well, it's about everybody was a bit shocked when the COVID arrives, right? When the COVID came, and being the brick and mortar, which always maybe previously almost 100% of the business coming from the offline sales, it's not, and people still come to our stores. I cannot say for other retailers, but for our case, people still come to our stores because they have the shopping rush and everything. So I believe that also the behavior from the customer itself, which still seeing that shopping to the store as one of the activity that they cannot avoid even during the pandemic, plus the internal that we face, like I said, the capabilities and also the changing that happens rapidly. I think that could be one of the barrier that holds the further development of the digitalizations in the retailer world.
Thanks. That's helpful. And can you talk a little bit about when businesses such as yours were pushed to take more digital initiatives. What were some of the internal barriers, more in terms of mindset, people, behavior, skills, that you had to fight internally to get people to start moving in an accelerated fashion? Was that journey of internal change management easy, or was that a pretty complex thing to go through?
For sure, it's not an easy thing to do, because I believe that not everybody is in favor for change, right? I believe that applies to all industries, not only the retailers. We are facing with the fact that, like I said, in our case, I believe in Indonesia's case, in the country's case, that people still love to go shopping to the brick and mortar shop. I mean, regardless COVID pandemic or whatever it is, people still go to shoppings, right? They still favor to go directly to the stores, pick up the stuff that they want to buy, choosing it, and doing the normal grocery shoppings. So in a sense, that also in a stand us, it stopped us from, not really stop, but it helped us from developing the digitalizations. But we understand that it's a must, because nowadays the current trend is moving towards the directions. So e-commerce is booming. It's still a small contributions, but the growth is amazing, and everybody is chipping in into that market as well. So we cannot afford to not to be in a wave, in a sort of way. But yeah, regarding your question, was it an easy journey or not? No, and we are still in that journey at this point. So we are moving towards the directions. It's not an easy thing to do.
Thanks, Yuna. Brandon, I want to bring you in on that question. You have experience as part of your business looking at companies in the West, retailers in the West, and now you look at markets in Asia. What is the mindset that you see in Asia versus the West from retailers, and how has that changed over the last 2 years? More in terms of a desire, but also a willingness to make things happen and take this digital journey.
Yeah, I mean, great point. I think the United States and Europe, I think, have more willingness to take risk, right? So they try out new things. They have kind of this fail fast approach. So they'll try something out. If it's not working, they'll fail quickly and move on to the next thing. So especially when we're looking in the context of what we see with connected data, we see the largest retailers in the world in the United States adopting graph, connecting their data, connecting the dots across their data, and then leveraging that for driving more revenue, doing things like improving margins, a lot of things they do. But I think typically what we've seen is the US adopts that first. They figure out what's working. And then as the Asian market can start to see what seems like it's working in the West. And then they start to adopt those things. So that's kind of what we're seeing is a lot of those big innovative retailers that are taking lots of risk, have lots of funds. They're doing those things. They're innovating. They're trying to figure out what's working. And now we over here in Asia are cherry picking what things are going to work best and leverage those here. So I mean that's my quick perspective on it.
Thanks, Brandon. Saurabh, I want to bring you in on that part. You spoke about personalization. One of the discussions that at least I have with CEOs on the other side is that all of this is great, but will this make money? Will the consumer pay for it? And so to Brandon's point, there seems to be a lot of questions being asked, whereas as Brandon said, in the West, people are happy to innovate. Let's try something out. Let's see whether it works. Let's see whether that will disrupt. Do you see something like that in Asia? And then during COVID, has this started changing where people are now saying, I'm happy to be the first person to try this. I don't need to see 15 use cases and 20 examples and business cases, but let's go for this because we believe that this is a game changer. Saurabh?
Yep, great question. And alluding to what Brandon said earlier, I think in majority cases, US innovates and we copy, but now I'm starting to see the trend where Asia is starting to innovate, and eventually I hope the West will copy. And I want to see that balance come into the picture. Look, any kind of change eventually comes from an internal and
everyday check ba wala ni ko dito timbre
sorry, could
ba
you just mark to mute, please? Thank you. I think he's talking to someone in the background. So any kind of change, I think, comes from internal or external factors. COVID was that external factor that people couldn't avoid. They were thrown into it, and a lot of brick and mortar companies needed to do something because obviously lockdowns and all, everybody knows the story. The experimentation mindset has started kicking in. A lot of customers we work with, and we work across verticals. We work with e-commerce, we work with OTT, music streaming, telco, banking. A lot of organizations have started to say we want to be the first one to try this out. Again, a lot of experimentation happens in various industries, and it's a risk factor. They need to have executives who are willing to spend the money, and they need to have confidence that the people they are betting money on or the ideas they're betting money on can actually produce some results. Yep. So organizations that have people who are digitally savvy, I find that these digitally savvy people, vendors cannot fool them. They can't just take them for a ride. Yeah. I'll give you a great example. Recently, Singapore announced the digital licenses, and finally, the first digital bank is now live, which is a part of Standard Chartered, Trust Bank. If you speak to their entire decision-making team, they're not your traditional bankers. They're all digitally very savvy. They know every use case, they know every technology, and that's where the experimentation has started. So I think depending on which industry you are in, how old your people are, how much are you teaching them about digital, depending on it's going to come down to people. End of the day, people are going to make these decisions. If they know what digital is, how digital works, their executives will sponsor for experimentation projects, but executives also connect with each other at the top level. You can't just ask for money and do an experiment for the sake of it. One example from MoEngage is when I came on board with the company 2 years ago in the middle of COVID. The CEO said, okay, what do we want to do? Do we want to build a team in Singapore and serve Southeast Asia? And my request was, we are going to build a team in every single country. We're not going to build a team in Singapore because we are like advisors to our customers. They use our software, but we are also advisors. And I would rather have a Vietnamese learn our product, but advise their own customers about their market rather than somebody sitting in Singapore advising them. That is how we expanded in the region. So experimentation is definitely happening. I'd like to see it happen a bit more often.
Thanks, Saurabh. Mark, I hope your connection is stable now. I wanted to bring you in on that. Mark, Saurabh spoke about the value of people. Now, one of the challenges that traditional businesses that you said you were, at least pre-COVID, find it relatively hard to bring this kind of talent into traditional brick and mortar businesses because, if you're a young tech savvy person, do you want to work in the tech or software industry, or would you want to do something like that in the retail space? As you have gone through your journey of digital transformation, how difficult has been the people angle for you, getting the right set of people with the right mindset but also the skills, and how have you managed that journey, Mark?
Right, thank you for that. Yeah, it's been challenging actually from the very beginning, even before the pandemic, when the leadership here in Primer is actually quite progressive, and we were looking very much at growing the online business as it is. As what Yuna said, I mean, in the countries where we have a big population, people like shopping, right? I mean, even in Singapore, people like shopping. They like the interaction, social. So for the team in each country, especially in the country where we operate big brick and mortars, it's really difficult to move online. Right? Opening a store is easier than trying to open a website, to them, right? But the pandemic came. We threw out the business plan because we have a business plan for 2020, which was 5% online, still 95%, and then it moved to 70% online, and we had to convert all the people. As you said, to me the most fundamental actually during that period was people, because you had to change their mindset. Even though they were young, they were hungry, but they were very retail orientated, and for us it was a challenging journey. We had to really retrain them, build up new capabilities, talk to them that this is something that is going to be forever or for a long time, and it's not going to go away. Online is what we need. And then of course you had the 2-3 months of lockdown, and then they start to realize that okay, maybe we have to do something about it. But we had a lot of people who left, and we had to retrain a lot of people. We moved about 100 people from the retail side of the business to the online side of the business. And it's a totally different mindset and so-called skill set, right? The skill set might be the same in merchandising, brand management, development, consumer behavior, but you are all doing it from a desk side, right? From a desktop, right? Because you're not going out into a brick and mortar store. So it changes the perspective of what the young people think and feel. And of course, we have been trying to grow talent as well as we moved on 2 years now. We are trying to do the whole gamut of online, anywhere, everywhere, and of course social commerce, social selling, and moving down to voice commerce as well. But at the same time, how we marry this all together as the brick and mortars open, and try to get people to stay where they are, focus that this is a long-term vision, and there's a long-term benefit to being on the online side of the game. This needs a lot of people, as you said, getting the correct talent is challenging. People want to go to the Grabs, the Shoppies, the Lazadas. They sound so exciting, but at the end of the day, I think we have to inculcate that culture in our organization, such that at the end of the day, they realize that you still need the fundamentals of merchandising, brand management, etc., to be able to stay in this game for a long time.
Thanks, Mark. Chris, I want to bring you in now. You operate in the world of luxury. You partner with, as you said, with retailers, with distributors, with other platforms to get your products to the right consumer. Now, in the case of luxury, experience matters a lot. Consumers want to see the full journey being experiential, that is worthy of your product, which could be a little different when somebody's, let's say, buying an FMCG product where they're not expecting the perfect experience. As you work in this ecosystem with retailers, distributors, other brands and platforms, what has been your experience? How open-minded they are to work and improve things? How has their mind shifted during the last 2 years during COVID?
I think one of the fundamental experience that I made together with the brand, obviously during the pandemic, is that we need to be much more open, even in the luxury industry, to accept and listen to the demands of the consumers. In many ways, before the pandemic, the luxury brands had a strong belief that they are in control of the channels, they're in control of the communication, of the engagement level that they want to accept and they want to drive with the different consumer segments. Obviously, the pandemic, as for many other industries, has also fundamentally disrupted this belief, has disrupted the way a business is done. Fundamentally also because in the luxury industry, as a brand principle, you want to be in control of your supply, not only of your supply chain, but obviously also in the goods that you bring to the market. Let's talk about numbered limited editions. You want to be in control of the level of quality and customer service. You want to be in control of your price. And all of that, when you then go into a much more dynamic model of omni-channel, where you allow also a different level of engagement with your consumer segments, you need to give up this belief. You need to give up some of that control. And I think it has been overdue that the luxury industry has been disrupted in that way, in the sense that consumer segments, which are also very relevant today, the Gen Zs, which are the future consumers of luxury brands in many ways, even though they might have limited disposable income today, but in a few years' time, they're absolutely relevant, they want to absolutely engage very different. They have a very different expectation of the experience they will have. And that experience in an online world is fundamentally different than offline. We have tried new models, for example, the video live streaming. In a market like China, this has become quite a popular model. In other markets, not yet. Where that level of experience with a host in a live stream session is taking away a lot of the other fundamentals that the luxury industry has. But it has proven that with the right setup, with the right control of the environment, it is still possible to provide an experience that is in the framework that a luxury brands wants to drive that. I would say that is not transportable into every other market in the same way. But in a market like China, where this has a huge growth of at least 20% of the e-commerce channels, this has to be proven to be quite successful. And I think many brands have also opened up to this and are trying out those kind of models. So overall, I think a good shift, a good disruption, and it has shaken a lot of the beliefs also in top management levels of the companies. And from there, we are on the right track to become more agile, which I think is the absolute fundamental need for any luxury brands for the future.
Thanks, Chris. Brandon, I want to bring you in on the point on data now. Everything that we spoke about comes from data, is built on data. And at least one of my experiences has been that our clients in Asia have a lot of data, but that data, integrating that data is a nightmare because it sits in different places. A lot of that is data, especially when you work in markets which have distributors and wholesalers and retailers and sub-retailers. You don't necessarily control all the data, and therefore having data and being able to use data become two very separate issues. Your experience in this space, how complex has it been versus, again, the West, even when clients now agree to do this, to get them to that level where you can start using data to make intelligent decisions?
Yeah, thanks, Pathak. So we all know that data is the new oil, right? So the problem is dealing with connected data. Retailers gathering and storing vast amounts of data, like you alluded to, but getting value out of that data has been a real challenge. So in order to do that, we have to effectively connect the dots across our data. And until we understand that these connections in our data are just as valuable as the data itself, then we may be ignoring what may be the most valuable data that we actually have. So we see retailers have their data, as you mentioned, spread across vast silos. When you think about things like supply chains that are very complex with these highly connected structures, you see dependencies across it. We also have very complex customer data and product data. So if you can think of how many different systems have data about a customer that we have, and you may find as you look across all of your different systems that customer data is spread out everywhere, right? So how do I aggregate and get this complete view of my customer, or a complete view of my product, or a complete view of my supply chain? So the world's largest and most innovative retailers are turning to graph data platforms. So graph data platforms are the way that we are connecting the data through a graph database, applying things like graph analytics and graph-based machine learning, graph visualizations, things like this and then integrating with our current data infrastructure. So they're doing things like increasing margins through automating processes and optimizing supply chains. They're driving more revenue through hyper-personalization. So this could be recommendation engines or chatbots. They're automating the process of detecting fraud. And the fraud may not necessarily be traditional fraud. A lot of our retailers are finding that fraud can be just people gaming systems. They'll come up with a promotional campaign, and there's a loophole in it, and people are taking advantage of it. So the first thing they have to do is add this graph layer into their enterprise architecture. And then we see them turning to building very specific knowledge graphs around a certain thing. Like, let's gather all of our data around customers, or all the data around our product or our supply chain, and then enriching that with external data, adding things like ontologies or taxonomies that may be relevant, and then leveraging this for a wide range of use cases. I know my colleague Nick is going to be presenting on knowledge graphs here, I think, in the next session. But I think that there's a tremendous opportunity to drive more revenue, improve margins, do all those things that we want to do, be more resilient when we have these COVID-19 moments. And that all starts with connecting our data.
Saurabh, you want to comment on that? Again, as part of MoEngage, you rely a lot on leveraging data. How ready do you think clients are by having the right data, but also connected data that one can then work through? What is their readiness in Asia Pac?
Sure. I'll allude to something Brandon said again, and then I'll answer the question. Data is the new oil, and crude oil goes into a refinery where it goes through a huge process to figure out for refinery people to figure out what kind of how to transform petroleum into refined products such as gasoline, petrol, diesel, etc. So in the data space, in the digital world as well, you have crude oil, which is your raw data, and you bring it into multiple platforms, and those platforms then break down the data into information, and then information is used to make decisions. How ready customers are? Again, there are three key things that will make this a success or a challenge. First is the people. Second is the platforms, technology platforms that they have in place. You can't just bring data and then start printing it and start looking at it. You've got to have technology in place. And the third one is privacy regulation in the country that you're operating. So companies might be ready, but if the regulation says you can't really do much with the data in the manner that you're trying to, you can't do much with the data then. So are people ready? Are people upskilling themselves when it comes to using data in the right manner? Are they taking courses? Are organizations sending their people to go learn technology from technology? You can go back to universities. You can talk to companies like us. We have plenty of training courses available for companies we work with. Are companies doing that? I think in the digital space they are. I think in the brick and mortar space, I think there's still a bit of a gap because they've got traditional systems. They've got people who are working in their organizations for decades. They probably don't know what they don't know, and they don't realize that you can't just buy platforms and let the platform do the magic for you. It doesn't work like that. You don't buy a car and then the car drives itself. Well, now it does. It maybe we'll get there from a digital platform as well. Teslas drive themselves, but that's a small proportion of number of cars we have on the road today. So you can't just buy technology and let the technology do the job. It just doesn't happen like that. So you've got to train your people. If you're running an organization, if you're running a traditional organization, make sure your people have access to partners who can give them honest advice on what to do with the data, what can be done with it. Second, do you have the right technology in place? CDPs of the world or decisioning tree like Neo4j, connected data platform. Do you have these platforms in place? And after that, if you're going to engage with your customers, do you have the regulation that allows you to engage with them in a regulated manner? GDPRs, PDPAs, and every country now has some sort of regulation. Do you have all that in place? I think a lot of education is still missing in the brick and mortar business, and I would personally like to see that gap to be filled sooner. A lot of brick and mortar businesses have started to shut down now because they couldn't go digital. We've already seen a lot of them struggling. In all honesty, there was a massive opportunity for them to go online. The people weren't ready. An IT manager running brick and mortar business and just supporting POS terminals and in a physical store, you cannot expect him to take the company digital. He'll make your website, but building the website's not going digital.
Thanks, Saurabh. Yuna, I want to bring you in on that, right? And that's to my next question, and then Mark, if you can also jump in. As we discussed, retailers want to go and it's imperative for them to also have a strong, solid online business. We discussed that it's very hard, as Mark said, to get talent to do all of this. We discussed that this is a big change management, but we have an ecosystem of folks like Saurabh and Brandon who play in this space, who want to make the change. My experience at least has been that the relationship that you would want to have between retailers and solutions providers should be one of co-creation and collaboration, because everybody is trying to solve something, but quite often it becomes your traditional customer vendor relationship, where there is perhaps too much time spent on scope of work, what will you do, how will you do, when will you get it done, and that partnering that is much needed to create something in the beginning. I don't see that often enough. You want to talk about this and then Mark later. How, or rather, what more would you want to see the ecosystem together trying to take Asia forward, as against everybody trying to solve things in bits and pieces? Yuna.
Great question. So that's a fantastic question, and I completely align with you on that. The vendor and customer relationship becomes very transactional after a certain time. Initially, when we start talking to companies we want to be able to work with or help, initially we start with educational sessions. But if we don't see money on the table in the next 12 to 18 months, our sales guys, our growth guys are going to start going to focus on something that's actually going to help them bring in money, right?
Yeah.
So
Sort of, let's get Yuna to react to that. Yuna, you're on the other side, so Yuna would love your reactions.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. Personally, I would like to have someone like Saurabh on the team, cooperating with me, because I see that, referring to my previous points below, having the right subject matter expert to walk with us along the this journey of digitalizations would be top priority for us. Because to be honest with you, we do not. I will have to say that the capabilities is the biggest issues right now. It's not only about finding the right solution. Sometimes we haven't figured it out yet clearly. What is it exactly the problems? And this is where the right partners comes in very handy. And I believe all retailers are very much open to it. It's just sometimes that I think I agree with Saurabh, or I think it was with Mark, that sometimes, we do expect when we buy some sort of technology, whether it is platform or not, we sort of expect that it will do all the works for us. While on the other hand, we ourselves is not really that ready to hand in our decisions making into some sort of a machine learning systems, right? So we are very much open to have cooperations with the partners. Again, what we need is a partner. We don't need providers that just provide us with some sort of a platform and some nice dashboard and then tell us that this is a self-service dashboard, you can do it yourself. No, we need sort of like a consulting partner. We need a thinking partner that guide us how we should treat this data, because data will give you the logic behind and then it will path the way forward to you, right? That sort of partner that we need. So, but so far, I cannot speak for others, but for my experience is that the transactional basis is not only coming from us, but it's also coming from the partner itself. After they built something for us, and then they said it's a self-service, then you can do it on your own. That's not how things work with retailers. You need to guide them step by step, introducing the new technology and how it can help the business decision making.
Yeah, and I, at least personally, am seeing a lot of maturity and evolution coming in here, as both partners in the ecosystem, the retailers as well as the service or solutions providers, start realizing the benefit of this. There is more trust. I think in the early stages, there's a lot of experimentation, and therefore perhaps more doubts than there will be in the future. Mark, I want to bring you in here, and I also wanted to address a question that we have from Yichin in the audience. And her question is, how many years does it take to recover the investment on these digital solutions in your organization? If you could also try and give us a sense on that.
I think the digital transformation journey for us is we don't look at it as a destination, because I think with technology it just keeps improving and things keep changing. What we could have done 2 years ago, or couldn't do in 2 years ago, I mean, can be done now. So as what the panel were talking about, digital gathering and digital information, flowing back and forth. These are some things that was not available previously. So when we do an investment, we actually look at what kind of revenue or what kind of benefit value add that we can get for our organization and for our people to make decisions, more so than whether or not we will get the ROI on it. I think that's the critical for us, because it's a long-term journey, right? I mean, just going on what you were alluding to earlier about, what do we do, and who are the people that we collaborate with. I mean, we have this conversation almost every month in our board meetings. In fact, yesterday we had a board meeting, and probably a quarter of the board meeting was talking about, how to collaborate with a company that was proposing to us to provide, the platform to gather all the data. I mean, data is important for our business on the consumer side, because we need to know, why is the customer buying online, what's he buying, who's he buying from, what are the competitors selling, and who are the competitors selling to, and is this same customer that came to us also went to 3 other competitors. I mean, these are very analytical tools that we actually require maybe 20 years ago, but it was hard, right? You had to do it manually. I remember we get the girl at the shop to actually write down, is this a Singaporean, is this a foreigner, just by trying to listen to the accent, so how many foreigners shop at your shop. But now with the online part of the business, you have all the data, and how we churn the data is another critical thing, as what we were talking about. Because when we get the technology, or when we subscribe to something, often than not, we don't use everything that is given, and there is a fear from our people that oh, this thing is going to be bog me down. It's gonna take me longer to learn it than for me to execute it. And then this becomes something that we have to get everyone to get over that fear and say that, okay, this thing, the ROI is that you will be able to make better decisions, and you will be able to we will be able to move more efficiently in our merchandising, in our selling, in our point of sale, as well as not only offline but online. So it works both ways. But what we are talking now to some of the vendors, I mean, of course, there's a couple of vendors here, is collaboration. We look at how we are going to collaborate. Yeah, you propose me a system, the dashboard. I tell you what I need. You tell me this is what I can give you. So now I tell you that, okay, it's so much and so expensive. Why don't we do a collaboration? And if I use it well, we can have revenue sharing. We can have, all sorts of models we are proposing to actually some of the vendors. And I think we have a couple that actually work that way already from the very beginning. So from the very beginning, pre-pandemic, order management systems, etc., was something that a lot of companies didn't want to pay for, right? They didn't feel the value. But I don't need to know whether I have my inventory in here, right? Then the proposal from the collaborators or from the developers was actually, okay, let's do a revenue sharing. I'll take 1% of your revenue. So that's
good
works.
to hear. That's very good to hear.
Exactly. So that works for us as well, right? So
yeah.
So going forward, I think that will be the way. That's the collaborative method.
So that's great to hear, and I'm sure it gives our solutions providers on the call much comfort as well. Chris, I want to bring you in, and this may perhaps be the last question. There are a few questions on the chat, and perhaps all of you can also address that. Chris, you look at Asia Pacific. Different markets in Asia Pacific are quite different in terms of their maturity, driven by, as Saurabh was saying regulations, people, whether the retailers are international or more local. Which are the markets, Chris, in Asia Pac that you see will break through in the next 3 to 5 years and will perhaps be the digital champions in retail in the years to come versus what it is today?
I think what is clear, the obvious front runners are for sure at this stage are China. That is very clear. Also because of the total size of the market, a lot of investment has been done in the digital markets. And that is not only collaborating on third-party marketplaces, but it's an ecosystem, a digital ecosystem that allows that experience to be relevant. Because as we say before, an e-commerce platform was probably a supportive channel for retail, for physical retail. But going forward, that will fundamentally change because the digital channels, the digital touch points will be the main interaction with the clients, and the physical stores are becoming a supportive element of that, where you still go and touch and feel the physical products. So that dynamic shift is fundamentally changing, and that has already reached that maturity stage in a market like China. Other markets that are definitely on fast breakthrough are Taiwan and South Korea. They also are very technology focused, and they are reaching maturity stage. In Southeast Asia, Singapore to some extent, but also markets like Indonesia and Malaysia are definitely having the capacity and the mindset of that innovative retailer experience to make changes. Because once you have that mindset, once you are agile enough to explore new forms of collaboration, go into new channels, you'll be able to expand your business in a different way and grow much more rapidly your market share.
Chris, thanks. I think that's all the time we had for this session. I'll just make some closing remarks as I observed this. All of us agree that retail in Asia will continue to evolve and grow. As per capita incomes grow up, consumers will spend more and more. The journey of digital transformation, be it both in terms of how you sell, but also how do you manage your operations, is accelerating. And hopefully, I'm hopeful that post-COVID, we will not go back to where we were, but we will continue to accelerate and expand and not wait for the next disruption to be disrupted. One of the challenges that all of us discussed is a lot of this will be experiments. We are trying to create something. There are two ways to do it. One is to wait and watch what happens somewhere in the world and bring it in. May or may not always work in Asia because we are different, our consumers are different. In which case, a lot of this will also be experimentation, somebody raising their hand and saying, we believe in it, let's do it. That is where culture, mindset, and people will become a major challenge. And it will be important for the ecosystem, be it both policy regulators, be it both the customers themselves, the distributors, the brand, as well as the service providers, to move ahead here and try and make a change collaboratively and not in a tactical fashion. And all of your comments alluded to that there is a great desire on both sides and all sides to make this happen and partner and create something that's beautiful in Asia to see over the next few years to come. Thank you so much, all of you. Great pleasure talking to you, Brandon, Yuna, Chris, Mark, and Saurabh. I think I think the contacts of all of you will be made available, and people can discuss more if they need to. But thank you so much. Jed, back to you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sid. Thank you to the rest of our panelists for the really great discussion. We still have a few questions under the Q&A tab, but we're out of time. But I still invite our panelists to answer each question. It has a comment tab or a comment button under each question. I invite you to please answer for our delegates. And if you have any questions, more questions specifically for any of our speakers, you can reach out to them directly under the People tab. You can send them a private message. But specifically for Saurabh from MoEngage and Brandon from Neo4j, you can catch them over at their respective booths over at the booth section. So once again, thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank
So
you.
up next, we have a presentation by Nick Vora, Vice President for Asia Pacific, Neo4j, on how knowledge graphs drive more sales with real-time recommendation engines.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nick Vora. On behalf of everyone here at Neo4j, I welcome you to how knowledge graphs drive more sales with real-time recommendation engines. It is my pleasure to be here. Now let's look at some of the events that have happened in the recent times. We've always lived in a hyper-connected world. For centuries and centuries, we've all been connected with each other, be it people, be it assets, be it connections, be it universe, our movements. But in the recent years, the outcomes of these connections and the outcomes of impact to these connections have become very, very real. You've probably seen all the headlines around the ship that was stuck in the Suez Canal. Now, the ship went free within a few days, but the impact lingers on even today. You would have seen stock sinks because of an event somewhere else. Somebody cuts production targets, somebody cuts, there's a supply chain chip shortage, and the cascading effect is everywhere. In fact, even to this date, hardware availability, projects that have to go live are in queue, in pipeline, because there's not enough chips, there's not enough hardware, there's not enough deployment where you can run a lot of things that you want to. Right from automobiles to every other sector, healthcare, medicines, etc., everything is impacted because of supply chain issues. And these issues have brought to the front and core how all of us are connected. No one is escaping this in isolation. Events that happen in a different part of the world have a real direct material consequence on how we run, how our businesses run, and how our customers experience our services. A lot of these supply chain problems, if you really think about it, these are data problems. Now, using ineffective manual processes, we can get supplier data. More than 75% of executives in the research do not feel that they're confident in the quality of the data they have. More than 938 of the Fortune 1000 has a tier 1 to supplier problem during the pandemic. A lot of us know in the retail space, if you're running a mall, if you're running a hospitality service, if you're running a fashion retail or any other retail, we all typically know our tier 1 supplier. But the tier 1 supplier is dependent on the tier 2 supplier, who's dependent on the tier 3 supplier, and so on and so forth. And an impact on the tier 3, 4, 5th level of supplier cascades onto us and onto our ability to serve our customers. More than 938 Fortune 1000 companies realized that they don't have visibility into their tier 2 onward suppliers, and that business is at critical risk due to supply chain delays. And forecasts, good forecasts, bad forecasts, are equally inaccurate. The poor supplier data is costing us millions. It's costing poor decisions, ineffective operations, logistics, and a lot more. And all these complex problems are really data problems. How can we increase the visibility to better data quality, better data insights, and better data analytics basis the connected nature of the world that we live in? Let's take a second and review the typical architecture that a lot of our internal IT systems have. IT systems over many years have organically grown, but they have grown during a time when times were simpler. Data was very simple to put into rows and columns. It was structured. The last 15 years has seen a lot of unstructured, semi-structured data coming our way, a lot of connected data, a lot of mobility data coming our way. But before that, all the systems that we typically use were designed and built before all of this happened. And the relational databases and applications around relational databases, be it your CRM, be it your SCM, be it manufacturing planning or human resource planning, your store inventory, these are all in multiple silos, and they don't necessarily talk to each other in the same dynamic way that they have an impact on each other in real life. In real life, a customer can have an impact on your inventory management, on your supply chain management, on your CRM, etc. in real time. but those connections are not visible because our systems are often single intent. They were built with one particular intent. It's either a loyalty system, it's an inventory system, it's a merchandising system, but then they were built with a single intent. And they are often rigid to that intent. And when we ask our data teams, when we ask our data scientists to create more insights, more information from these systems, they struggle to get the context. Context is extremely valuable when you're trying to make a business decision. If a customer is walking in on a particular day and buying a particular piece of product, the context of how that customer came in, why the customer is buying that particular product, is it a particular demography that has a particular buying range, that has a particular color selection? Are the market factors like a festival or their location or something else dictating the choice of the purchase? Is supply chain dictating the choice of purchase? Was it unavailable elsewhere, which is why they came into your store? How is all this context important? And all the context, how do we derive that from the rigid single intent systems that we have today? Now, all of this sounds great. And often when I talk to CIOs, it seems unrealistic. A lot of CIOs tell me, is there a success story? Has someone really transformed their entire business? Is it realistic to get value if we have context in every part of our retail business? Now let's look at a very, very prominent example. Figuring out how to extract the deeper context from data has helped Amazon tremendously. Amazon has possibly one of the most complex inventory systems globally. They have products in many, many different categories and verticals. They have products that are premium, that are in early price range. They have products right from bachelors to kids to toddlers to adults to life care across systems. Their customer base is also complex, and so is their supply chain, warehousing, and last mile delivery. And they are in this position where they are using context to drive so many decisions. They're using context by connecting all of their IT systems. They're transforming the customer experience. They're transforming the way the customer searches for product. They're transforming the way the customers are recommended products. And they're transforming the way customers eventually receive the products. And you can see the benefits. And it's not just restricted to Amazon. Let's look at LinkedIn. Let's look at Facebook. The rise of the social graphs, for all of us who have enjoyed connecting with an old friend or connecting with someone important, 8 out of 10 people in today's career have a positive impact of a tool like LinkedIn in finding their next job. If you look at the examples in network science, we are all much more likely to find a next pay rise because of someone we know and not because of something we did. Something we did is absolutely important, but the power of network is your next promotion, your next pay rise depends on the kind of people you know, right? As the old saying goes, it's who you know and not what you know. If you look at the Google page rank, Google revolutionized search. When it came about, it was exciting, it was fast, it was vastly more accurate. Google's page rank is really an application of graph technology that creates much more context into the search. Oftentimes I hear my family who doesn't come from a technical background say, why is Google search always, how does Google manage to understand what am I really looking for? And the answer is context. Look at PayPal, securing peer-to-peer transactions. Look at drug discovery or eBay, and changing the way you experience product searches, changing the way you get same-day delivery. A lot of these interesting, exciting applications have transformed many applications globally. Over the last 2 years, a report by McKinsey has said that irrespective of the location, irrespective of the geography or the country, e-commerce as a percentage of total retail sales has dramatically increased. be it in Indonesia, be it in Australia, Singapore, India, China, US, Germany. People are seeing between 2x to 10x increase in how important e-commerce is. As a retailer, as a hospitality provider, as possibly a shopping mall provider, have you factored in how you're going to cope? E-commerce until 2019 was possibly 1 or 2 or 3% of your business. It's now 6, 8, 10% of your business. If you can invest more and create much higher traction in this part, this could potentially safeguard your losses from the offline segment. The virus hasn't completely gone away. We are all evolving into a new normal where hybrid seems to be the norm. Is your organizations, the customers that you're serving internally and externally, have you organized yourself to the kind of investment that e-commerce will now need, to the kind of investment that your competition is likely putting in, and the experience that the customer now believes is the bare minimum? The bare minimum 2 years ago was just, I go to a website. Excuse me. The experience 2 years ago was I just go to a website, I search, I get something, I get it within 5-6 days, and it's good enough. The experience of e-commerce is now drastically different. I go somewhere, I expect the website to be easy, I expect the website to be intuitive, I expect very little effort from my side to search for the product that I'm looking for. I expect the website to recommend the right configuration, the right options, and I expect the delivery to be quick, easy, and simple. This is the new bare minimum. And with the share of sales from e-commerce going higher and higher, it is a strategic requirement that we address this. Now, why should Graph solve this problem for you? Graph technology fundamentally unites data relationships in a very intuitive, connected, with deeper context. Graphs is the natural way to think. It's also the natural way to store data, and it's also the natural way to analyze data. If you're ever looking at a graph of people, if you ever try to explain someone your friend's network and how you know someone who knows someone else, and you try to scribble that on a piece of paper, you are likely drawing a graph. If you draw a map, a customer journey map, a customer lifecycle map, in those ideation workshops, when the customer first interacts your company in an article, in an advertisement, or from a friend or a referral, and they go to your website, then they go check other things, that is a graph. It's a graph of their journey of interacting with your brand. At each stage of the journey, they are in a different phase. Understanding the journey, understanding that graph helps you customize and improve your probability of the customer moving to the next stage and the next stage, eventually leading to a transaction. And when you merge these different graphs, when you merge and combine all these multiple graphs with different semantics on top of each other, it's what you get is a knowledge graph. Knowledge graph combines information not just from a single intent people graph or a transaction graph, but from multiple domains. You could overlay your entire supply chain network, your supply chain availability, along with inventory, customers' past transactions, customers' clickstream data, all of it, because in reality, all of it is connected. You don't want to show recommendation in real time for a product that just went out of stock. You don't want to show a product in recommendations that has a 25-day delivery. How do you map all of this into real-time recommendations to a place where your customer feels a wow experience and they just want to go ahead and make a transaction? Graph technologies globally are experiencing accelerated momentum. Gartner, amongst other analysts, have anticipated that applications using Graph will grow at 100% throughout 2022, and up from 4% adoption, we are likely to hit a 30% adoption. If you are not considering Graph right now, it is very likely that others are seriously considering and adopting Graph technologies and creating a possible competitive advantage. Graph technology is helping in multiple sectors. There's decision analysis, which could very easily be merchandising forecasting, understanding which merchandising to focus on, understanding customers' past journeys, or in other segments. It could be the customer's experience, be it an omni-channel experience, be it an in-store experience, or a marketplace experience, something of an online marketplace or an offline shopping mall marketplace. It could also be data unification. Oftentimes, we have customer data coming in multiple locations, but it's never the same and it's never completely clean. The days where we dreamt about clean, 100% clean data, consistent data from all data sources are gone. The reality is we have so many systems where the customer interacts with that we have to find new innovative ways of understanding who's our customer. If the customer is using the shopping mall Wi-Fi and transacting at 3 different stores, they may not use the same device, they may not use the same credit card or the same mobile number. But for us to find a way to say this was one customer family, it creates a lot of business value. And that is something Graph does really, really well. Right from personalization on your website to in-store and discovering more. Now, who's Neo4j and why should you pay attention to anything that we're saying? Neo4j is the name that put Graph and database together. More than 230,000 developers globally are part of the Neo4j community. These are trained, certified developers, which means if you are looking at a business transformation and you're looking to adopt a new technology, you will always find people with Neo4j skills. Neo4j is also loved by investors, partly because of the commercial and community success that we have. Neo4j recently raised $390 million, which was by far the largest investment in database history ever. We are very thankful and we are very humble about it, but we also take pride in the fact that investors globally, including the top investors from US, Europe, and other parts, gave us the biggest round ever, creating a milestone behind which all of us can create more better products and more use cases working with all of you. We have more than 160 million downloads, and there are thousands of customers, of enterprise customers that have deployed this across the globe. 7 of the top 10 retailers are with Neo4j. This includes Amazon, includes eBay, includes many of the popular names like Walmart, etc. that you know of. Includes 3 of the top 5 aircrafts, all of the North American top 20 banks, many of the top banks here in Singapore, here in India, Australia, China, Hong Kong, and more. Many of the top telcos, including in APAC as well as globally, and many prominent names. Neo4j is also leading on the top right, on the absolute top right, with Forrester as well as with DB Engines. Those who are very familiar with Developer Network, you would know that DB Engines is the gold standard for understanding which database service is the most loved, the most adopted, and most trending. And it's a good source for developers to be trained on the best. DB Engines has put Neo4j on as the #1 graph platform for many years in a consecutive sequence. And so have analysts like Forrester, Gartner, and others. How does this fit into your stack? Does this imply that you have to rip and replace everything that you're doing today? Does this need a massive change? Do you have to buy new hardware? Do you have to hire more people? The answer is no to a lot. Neo4j fits in really well with existing systems that you already have. You could connect this to all your different data sources. You could connect this on any choice. If you're running your service in cloud, this is available in cloud with multiple options. This runs on-premise, in private data centers, in hybrid setups, or virtualized setups. This is available where you are and where your data is. It can connect to all the different data sources, right from relational to other NoSQL technologies, as well as the latest ecosystem of popular open source tools. We work with Kafka and Spark and Hadoop and all the technologies that top retailers are investing in. From a visual, Neo4j has three broad categories: the core database, Neo4j's graph data science, as well as visualization for those finer experiences. All of this is available as a service where you are for different users within your organization. Now, what are some of the real-time recommendation use cases that our customers have deployed? Use cases can go from SAP to eBay to dynamic pricing system by Marriott or inventory system by Walmart, Nordstrom, etc. There's also a ton of applications across different verticals that are very applicable to retail as well. If you look at master data management, retail has a major challenge of data silos, data coming from different systems, and the need for IT, especially the people who are responsible for governance, for privacy, for compliance, security, to understand where your data is, and if a customer requests the data to be deleted, for it to get deleted. There's always new products being created within your tech landscape. And sometimes it's difficult to understand where your customer information is. Graphs are a perfect natural way for you to get speed and agility and simplicity in complying with all personal data protection acts. If you look at identity access management, data is available across many different stores, many different partners, be it delivery partners or store partners or supply chain partners. How do you ensure data is only available to the right party, to the right entity, at the right level, to the right level of access? And graphs, again, are a perfect way to manage your identity and access, trusted by the biggest retailers and the biggest banks to rely on Neo4j for the governance, risk, and compliance. Coming to the real-time recommendation, a very interesting use case is from eBay. eBay, amongst other things, wanted to create a much better experience for customers trying to search their product. Search, ever since Google became super successful with using graphs for search, search has become synonymous with graph. If you're trying to improve search, a basic NoSQL technology is just no longer sufficient. If a customer wants to buy a men's leather, calfskin leather bag for under $100, it's not enough for you to have a relational database or keep a tag under bags or under anything else. This is a search query that needs to be broken down into a graph to give the best recommendation on the front page to understand exactly what the customer might need. The customer may be searching for vegan sustainable products on your own website for the last 10 minutes, and you would then be sure not to show leather products. You might show artificial leather products, for example. So the context of the customer's experience with eBay or your website, and using that as part of the search in real time, connecting to all the different data silos, be it the inventory, be it the catalog, be it supply chain, inventory, etc., and showing the best possible recommendation front and center was a big challenge for eBay. eBay wanted to search through more than 20,000 products, more than 150,000 attributes, and it was very difficult to provide that. So eBay chose Neo4j. They chose Neo4j as the native graph database that holds all the probabilistic models, and they used this with Google Assistant. So if you ever try any Google Assistant, you can say, let me try eBay, and the voice search that you might use over there gets fed into a Neo4j based system first, where it uses natural language processing, creating a search string that gives the best possible recommendation. And those recommendations have to be so highly trained because you're using an interface like Google Assistant, where you don't have the flexibility of showing multiple products and clicking here, clicking there. In this exchange, it is important that you show the best product first because it's a voiceover. And that is what eBay was able to achieve with Neo4j for the Google assisted products. Now let's look at Meredith Corp. Meredith Corp is a very interesting use case because so many of us over here struggle with the concept of true customer 360, a truly unique customer 360. We know we have family as customers. We know we have couples, we have parents with kids, we have grandparents, large families, bachelors, kids, etc. But how do we connect those dots? It is almost very difficult, right? And there are organizations that have an online presence, have an in-store presence, have a mobile app, have a call center, Twitter, etc. There's so many data sources, and it's very difficult to understand who is your real customer. What Meredith was able to do was take anonymous data, just cookies, nothing else. Most of you have a lot more information, not just cookies, but a lot more. But even with something as simple as cookies, they were able to convert 14 billion anonymous data points into 163 million unique user profiles. Just think about it, 14 billion data points converted into 163 unique profiles. And that is just with cookies, online experience cookies. Now you add all the other information that you have. Now let's create a knowledge graph around that. Add in all the transactions, add in all the newsletter signups, add in everything else. Everyone who ever signs up for a Wi-Fi in your store, anyone who ever browses your online e-commerce website after logging in, anyone who has a shopping cart, who has a wish list, all these data points will just add more richness to these 163 unique profiles, and it will give you a way more accurate count. And at the next quarterly meeting or at the next campaign that you run, you have a much better understanding of who's truly your customer, who are the influencers within your customer base. If you lose an influencer, it is said you will lose 40 other customers. So it's hyper important that we know who the influencers are. From an influencer, it's also important to know who's closest to the influencer, who's furthest away. So you can use data science in how you approach your customer service. You can get your call centers to say, if an influencer calls, use Neo4j, pop up the information to the call center so that they can provide special love and care. Using data science in customer service, in campaigns, and more is now a critical but very easy to deploy tool thanks to Neo4j Graph. To all my business leader friends who are out there and trying to understand, is this value for money? The Forrester Economic Impact Study, where tons of customers with existing deployments were surveyed, mentioned that there was a 417% ROI. Neo4j paid more than 4x within a span of 3 years for the cost of investment in the software, in the people, in the time. There was a 2.2 million increase in revenue, a 60% faster time to market, time to value, and more than 1.8 million in savings. Graphs are not only making you more compliant, they're not only reducing your hardware footprint, they're helping you save cost, stay compliant, but also helping you increase revenue. With these solutions being able to run where you are, we are very confident through our partner network, through our existing customers, through the more than 230,000 developers in our community. There's a lot of value for your organization, for your use cases, for you to create strategic competitive advantage using graph technologies and pivot from being single intent architectures to a connected architecture. Again, on behalf of everyone here at Neo4j, I thank you. We look forward to hearing your thoughts, comments, or questions at apac@neo4j.com. That's me, Nick Vora, signing off for today. Look forward to more opportunities. Thank you.
All right. Great presentation by Nick Vora from Neo4j. So if you have any questions regarding his presentation, you can visit the Neo4j booth, and Nick's colleagues will be more than happy to assist you. Also, Neo4j was kind enough to send in a few links of products, ebooks, and free courses and certifications over at the chat session room chat box. I advise everyone to take advantage of this. And thanks again, Neo4j. So that is a wrap for our first track for today. Let's now move over to the next track, which is the digital-driven growth track. See you all there.